We do need to get Jordy's Hayes Paradox popping on the timeline, but we will come back to that later because we have the co-founder of Honey in the building. Ryan, how you doing?
Doing
Boom.
great.
Yeah, thanks so much for hopping on. I think we have a mutual friend in John Wallinen.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And obviously I saw your thread. Could you give us just like a little bit of background on you, the company, and then kind of like what inspired you to write that thread? And then I'd love to dig through it in great detail because it's a fascinating story. And it's one of those narratives that kind of just goes out on the internet and grows and grows and grows. And I think there's a lot of, we need to correct the record here. And that's why I wanted to have you on. So thanks for joining.
Well, I'm talking to you guys first, so thanks for inviting me on. Yeah,
Fantastic.
like you said, I co-founded Honey more than a decade ago, back in 2012. For the first handful of years, we had a cool consumer product, but couldn't figure out how to make it into a company that investors would fund.
Yes.
It's a browser extension. Never has really been an attractive investment space. So,
Yep.
after a few years of grinding, we finally started to piece together enough of a user base that we got investment. 2015, we kind of really started to figure out how to do the business. And from 2015 to 2020, we just had a classic but insanely fun time riding a hockey stick of growth. And in 2020, sold the company to PayPal.
Yeah.
So as part of that acquisition, I stayed on at PayPal for a little while. After that, left at the beginning of 2022, even though I'd had a diminished capacity before that, but formally left in 2022. And then a few days before Christmas this year, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was a YouTube video accusing my former company of being a scam. And it also pulled in a bunch of creators who we'd spent over $100 million working with to promote Honey. I'm sure some of the audience saw our ads over the years. And because of that, it went insanely viral. And immediately, the narrative on the company I founded completely shifted. So it was a surprise.
Can you take me through the first evolution of the business model? You said you were kind of hunting for product market fit. How does Honey actually make money? How did it make money at first? Has that revenue mix changed over the time that you were there, pre or post PayPal? Walk me through just like the basics of the business, and then we'll dig into what kind of the video is about.
Yeah, so for the first few years, the business didn't make money, and that was part of the flaw in finding investors.
Yeah.
We thought maybe someday we'd figure it out, and had a few 100,000 users and organic growth on the company just from word of mouth, people sharing this cool new coupon tool that automatically applied coupons when you're checking out, and took a pain point that everybody had experienced and made it really easy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember using Retail Me Not back in like it must be 2008 or something like that. And you'd always have to, I'm buying something, Control T, new tab, search coupons, and Honey just baked that right into the browser. Made a ton of sense. And so, what was the first dollar into the business? Like, how did you make the first dollar of revenue, I guess?
The first dollar of revenue didn't come until 2015. So let's launch the product 2012, 2015. We pieced together kind of a rolling seed round of anybody that would take a flyer on this company with a couple 100,000 users and maybe interesting, but haven't really figured it out. And we used that to hire somebody with a background in affiliate marketing. And we being George and I, co-founders of the company, had thought that this might make sense because after all, Retail Me Not, you just mentioned, and other companies, that's how they monetize is when you click on that Retail Me Not link, it's actually affiliate tagging you at that moment in time. And so you go to do that coupon search, and whether the coupon works or not, it's they're getting an affiliate commission on that. And that's why they hide the code and open multiple tabs and do all that stuff. So that was how it was. And we're like, hey, we could probably monetize that way. George and I reached out to the affiliate world, and they basically were like, you guys are a toolbar. You probably are up to no good. Go away. And so we did. We didn't realize that there had been some bad actor toolbars in the space immediately prior to that, which was it's like a surprise to learn. But we went back to just building a cool product for consumers. And then when we hired somebody with background in that space, what we came to realize is that the relationship side of affiliate marketing is how you get to the table in the first place, to get that trust, especially as a new product in a toolbar or browser extension. Affiliate people call it toolbars.
Yeah. Before we go too much further, what was the LA tech ecosystem, or was there really an ecosystem in that 2015 era? Because I remember I graduated college in 2018 and everybody was like, oh, LA tech is real. It's a thing. And they were like Snapchat and Honey. Yeah. But like there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a big bench. There. Yeah, it was name the third company.
Yeah,
what's the third company?
I'd say very few people were even mentioning Honey in that conversation either. Yeah. We were pretty under the radar. We didn't do a ton of press and talk about what we're doing. We'd found a cool business and decided not to tell everybody that might want to pivot to copy what we do about it. But back to the affiliate piece of it. And so we hired from within the industry and we're able to have conversations. And one of the things we realized pretty quickly is another way to save our users money was to offer them cashback. And so we added a cashback loyalty program that we called Honey Gold in 2015. And when we did that, we started to look a lot more like Ebates, which became Rakuten, and the cashback model that was very familiar and comfortable to affiliate marketing, combined with the coupons. And we still had a lot of education to do around what the incremental lift is of keeping somebody in the shopping cart. Like you talked about, this journey that you had prior to Honey is you get to this box while you're checking out that's empty, says coupon codes. It's effectively challenging your intelligence as a consumer on, are you just going to check out or are you going to go find a coupon? And it's inherently adding friction to the checkout process by doing that, because either you're a little bit hesitant or uncertain, or you're going off on this wild goose chase. And we found that by keeping the consumer in the shopping cart, we actually drove incremental lift for the retail partners. And over time, a bunch of them were able to use their own data to demonstrate that to themselves. And that's the core of what became Honey's business model. So the first penny that we made and the last penny, as far as I know, is effectively affiliate marketing with a cashback program that we worked with, that we rebated that commission to the consumer.
Yeah. Talk to me about kind of the steelman argument. I've been on the other side of this because I've run e-commerce sites and I've seen Honey codes come in, and as an e-commerce owner, you're kind of like, oh, like I understand paying the affiliate for, the Andrew Huberman who like endorsed it and educated the consumer about it. But it's like, if I already did all this work to get the customer into my cart, why am I paying Honey at all? Like, I know that the customer was going to go find a code, but why am I paying you guys? Talk to me about that conversion lift and like how you actually test that and justify that, because I could imagine that there's probably some pent up like frustration amongst e-commerce sellers just saying like, that was always like paying a big Honey bill and it never really made sense to me. And honestly, I think a lot of e-commerce customers feel the same way about Google ads, to be clear, because they're like, I was going to rank #1 and I had to pay the Google tax. How do you think about like the Honey tax or any of those claims?
Honestly, I don't think it got to that point while we were running the business. Maybe over time they started to have more of that sensation. It wasn't the feedback that we were getting. We worked with thousands of retailers that made the decision that it was effective for their marketing programs. Obviously, there's people that chose not to work with Honey too. In fact, one of the first VCs I met when we were trying to raise a seed round, he, having been an e-commerce founder himself, he said, I hate what you're doing. This is before we had like any users or anything. I hate what you're doing. If I were still running my company, I would write code to break it and open source it so everybody could have it.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I guess you're not going to invest in this.
That's a pretty hard pass email. Most people would say not a fit at this time.
Correct.
This VC's like, I would open source what you're doing because I'm so frustrated.
So he never did that, and nobody ever did that. That's and we got better at demonstrating the value.
And it does make sense that if you're at the last second, you're like, I'm deep in the checkout. Like they just hit me with taxes and shipping, but then Honey came in and gave me a little bit, 5-10% off. I'm more likely to click. And you could imagine that math working out in certain scenarios and maybe in aggregate.
Yeah, it's in aggregate, people have found that it works for them for
That's
any
great.
particular consumer journey. I'm sure you can say, "Oh, I was going to buy this one anyway,"
Yep.
but there's other times when you might have gotten the hesitation of, "Hey, maybe I should wait for a sale,"
Yep.
and
Oh, totally.
by getting the confidence that you have a deal and you
Yeah.
check out now,
Yeah.
in aggregate, it makes enough sense that like the commission rates that are paid for this are not high, so
Yeah.
it's not like the marketing spend on Google where you're spending well into double digits
Mm-hmm.
percentage of revenue on
Mm-hmm.
acquisition or what you're spending on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like really small numbers.
Yeah.
And part of that, the reason the rates are low is actually because of the place in that journey. So it's an incremental lift for a few percent. It's not
Yeah.
increment. We never tried to sell it as, hey, you should give us 25% like you're paying Google
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
get 4x return on ad spend is
Yeah.
like 25% commission rate.
Yeah. And you're
So
bringing a little bit of like this dopamine hit to the checkout process that's normally like, I got to like type in all this junk. I got to do all this. And then Honey shows up and you're like, yeah, I feel like I just won the lottery. Like maybe I will
Yeah.
check out. So I could totally understand the
but
statement.
before we were doing this, I mean, keep in mind the customer journey is like open the Google tab and go search for a coupon somewhere
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
And you're going to find one from a competitor. You're going to
Yep.
find a bunch that don't work. You're going to
Yep.
get distracted because your kid wants a sandwich.
Yep.
Like there's a whole bunch of reasons that you end up abandoning that cart that you appeared to have high intent to check out on.
Yeah.
And shopping cart abandonment, especially when we started, is like the number one pain point for retailers. Like why are 70-80% of my people leaving, and what can I do to help close that? And so I think
Yeah.
Honey and tools like it, I mean, we were not the only ones that did this. A bunch
Yeah.
of other companies replicated the model and have had good success with that, and it's for the
Yeah,
same
can you
reasons.
talk about that? I remember at post exit, there was just this rush of companies that were like, okay, you can, Chrome plugins are now venture scale businesses. And like, I just remember it was like literally constant. There was so many
totally.
iterative companies.
Who knew?
I mean, it really just exposes like
but I don't
cool
remember-
technology, but also potentially a great business, which is fascinating.
But here's the issue.
Yeah.
Outside of cryptocurrency wallets,
Yep.
we haven't seen big outcomes in
No.
the sort of like Chrome plugin space, and you could
point.
argue those are mobile products. in
Yeah,
many
yeah,
ways.
yeah.
I have my own explanation or
Yeah, please.
thinking on it. So what George and I saw early was that while everybody else was off building mobile apps and every investor was asking, "Hey, what's your mobile strategy?" Chrome extensions or browser extensions generally have an insane retention characteristic that they completely solve for all of the problems that people are having on mobile of how do you not just get somebody to download your app, but to remember to use it in the context that you're providing value. And for mobile apps, like there's only a certain set of contexts where you have that natural habit loop trigger, and people wrote books about this of how do you get a consumer to like build that habit. You have to like effectively teach them that this is a new behavior. And on mobile, the apps that we're able to do that are effectively messaging apps that give you like a real trigger to come back into the app. You're engaging with somebody else. And
Yeah.
so outside of that, you never had like mass market consumer like product for shopping even. It's like it's a pretty big pain point, but like the amount of successful mobile apps going after even some of the biggest categories is challenging. On the browser extension, we got to get all of that engagement and retention and habit out of the box. Like you install us one time completely out of context. You are not shopping now. You might not shop for weeks or months. And the exact moment that we can deliver value, we can detect that context and present the option to do that. And one of the reasons Honey in the early days grew at a steady but slow rate is the cycle time on that growth loop was measured literally in months. So the time from somebody installs Honey to they get a coupon that works, which is like the aha, this thing actually works moment, was literally weeks to months. Like, and because of that, that's the moment when people would share and tell people about it. So we know this works.
Yeah.
So with the extension world, you have that. So how come other people haven't been able to do this? Well, there's actually a challenging policy in the extension framework that remains to this day, and it's a single purpose arbitrary policy that Google has for the Chrome store that extensions are only allowed to do one thing. And so extensions have effectively been pushed to only do a feature, and it becomes increasingly challenging to attach a business model to that feature. And so to me, that's the disconnect, that they've strategically divided the utility from the monetization side of it. And there's historically good reasons why you might want to do that in some cases, and people are abusing it. And like there was abusive behavior when before this policy came in, but I think it really slammed the door on a lot of other interesting models that people would have for a browser extension. And basically to this day, you have Honey and shopping tools, because we were able to attach the monetization that worked to do large scale consumer growth acquisition. You have Grammarly, who has a business model that works for it, and you have free ad blockers. It's basically the entire world.
Can you talk now about some of the allegations that were made in that video, what you found so frustrating about it, and kind of the process that you went through to debunk some of those claims? And also, I'd love to know, I mean, you've moved on. It's not really your baby anymore, but clearly it got under your skin and you were like, I got to set the record straight. So just walk me through the process of the claims in the video and then what you think they got wrong.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously the video is like complete shock, because like it's the last thing I ever expected to hear. And
yeah, you're like, we've saved people so much money. And then,
it's like everything about it. I mean, we saved tens of millions of users, billions of dollars. We helped fund a lot of content creation and the partnerships that we did with great influencers. And to twist that was to start with unexpected. And my initial reaction, walking through the stages on it, is like, it's once your baby, it's always your baby. So it's not like, I'd say we felt that. I felt that personally, talking to the hundreds of great people that built Honey. It's devastating to have the thing that you put all this energy into dragged in a public forum in a way that isn't accurate. And so that's like the initial reaction is like a little bit of grief, and not feeling like you could do anything about it, because almost everybody I'm talking about like moved on from the PayPal organization, doing other things. And so didn't really feel it was my place to step in and say anything. That's like, I sold the company to PayPal. They own it. They should be able to make the decisions that they want for this business. That I shouldn't be meddling in their business decisions. And so it's like accepting the reality of this is not mine anymore. And so then I saw, like, just keep in mind the timing on this. This drops like a Friday before like Christmas holiday week. A big company like PayPal is unlikely to have all of their resources aligned to respond to that at the same speed of a YouTube viral video going viral through a holiday season, where the initial video got 17 million plus views.
Wow.
The other videos about the same issue got even more than that in aggregate. And so it went wildfire. It led to rapidly several class action lawsuits being filed against PayPal and against other companies that do the same model. And because of that, the potential response from PayPal like rationally became, it's run by illegal.
Of course.
I'm assuming here, just to be clear, I have had no conversations with PayPal about anything, including whether or not I was going to say anything recently. So, I
love a founder going direct.
I suspect that any comms or legal person would have heavily advised against doing what I did. But so like going through these phases, expect it to kind of, maybe it'll just blow over, like it'll be a big storm and then like everybody can move on, but it's kind of continued to linger, and articles about it. And then Google updated their Chrome store policy, sparked a wave of articles at the beginning of March. And people again, from my point of view, like I have a lot of knowledge about this particular industry and extensions. Like the changes that they made to the policy will have no effect on anybody because they're already in compliance with what Google required. And despite that, nobody talking about it in the press like knew that. And so you have this consumer narrative that's going like crazy on Reddit and other places about
what about the specific claim of like rewriting cookies and affiliate codes where, you know, it's very clear that someone found out about a product from a specific influencer, the customer wants to use that code, and then Honey somehow gets in between that transaction. That felt like the claim that really took hold, and I think you addressed that in your thread.
Yeah, so like the never mentioned by anybody in any of the follow-up on it, not a single journalist or other YouTuber knew about, and partly it's because it's industry nuance that there is stand down policies at at almost all of the networks where downloadable software tools, toolbars, browser extensions are required by the affiliate network, who's mediating all these like multi-party exchanges, are required to stand down to traffic like that. So a website like the coupon code websites doesn't have the ability to tell if you've already clicked on somebody else's, some influencer creator link. They will, in the industry, it's tagging is the terminology for assigning the cookies. It's basically you're following a link and then the network's tool sets all the cookies. And so for somebody like Retail Me Not, you mentioned before, if you go to the site, you click on the link updates all the cookies.
Yeah.
In the case of browser software, do the same thing. It's just following the link in an unintrusive way for the user. So it's not like you're not going in there and modifying the cookie value. As a browser extension, you are clicking a link in the affiliate network, which is how they handle attribution. And so the overriding case that was described and purported to be extremely widespread, I think is actually very, very narrow, and only happens in two cases. One, the Honey stand down detection potentially isn't working in some cases. This is not what was alleged, but like as a person who knows this business, like it's possible there are cases where it struggles to detect that a link was clicked. And the particular example that he used on Newegg, I'm pretty sure this is what happened because Newegg is using a multi-touch attribution system, an AnyClick system from company Howl, and it is effectively like it's Newegg uses it so that they can pay both the creator upstream and Honey.
Interesting.
But I suspect that Honey wasn't standing down because it didn't recognize this Howl link, which is different than the normal Rakuten affiliate network link.
Got it.
Again, this is me speculating. I have no information on this, but it felt to me like a carefully selected example. And then a few weeks ago, I took another look at the video and I wanted to understand like, how did this happen? Like what he's saying. And I started pausing the video on the various pieces that he was showing on screen as, hey, Honey's doing all this devious behavior. And almost every version of that was essentially falsified. Like he'd say one thing and then the screen would show something completely different and non-incriminating. It's like there's a secret 20% off coupon code somewhere else that they're colluding with the retailer to not give you, is what he says. They're only going to give you the 5%. And then you watch the video rapidly going on screen. It's Honey going, and Honey gave you a 10% coupon and 5% cash back. I was like, well, you can't just like make shit up. or I guess
fact check false. You can make stuff up. This is the internet. Welcome to the web.
Yeah. So I get a little frustrated.
I'm sure.
And I had seen that he covered up the coupon. I was trying to figure out what happened. It's like he blacked out the coupon code box that he was using to demonstrate that Honey was hiding coupons. I'm like, why are you hiding the coupon that you're using when you're showing, like when that's the claim? And right there on the screen, there's like, from that same retailer, if you sign up for my email list, you get a 30% coupon. And then the next screen, he's like, here's a 30% coupon they didn't tell you about. I'm like, well, they didn't tell you about it because it's a one-time use code that's just for you, that you just sign up for that email right there. Like Honey's not saying that they're getting you that coupon.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's like a lot of misrepresentation, but then the data is just not there to support the claims. And I first decided to let the people at Reddit know and do an AMA there. Very, very lengthy post, and I'm glad it's way too long. Had some good questions there, but nobody's going to read this. And decided I would at least give some of the visual evidence in a Twitter thread, and it makes it a little bit more clear when you see it, like the screenshots, and like it's not me. Some of the stuff I said before about stand down and like that's industry specific knowledge, and this is what I thought I would have to talk about to defend Honey originally. But the stuff I talk about in the Twitter thread and on Reddit is like, you can see it for yourself. You don't have to know anything about this business. Just go hit pause and look at the screen and see if the evidence is being manipulated to create a narrative. And I think that it was. And I don't know if my version will get anywhere near 17 million views or like, I don't have that kind of platform. I've never really been a content creator or trying to get anything out there. We just kind of stayed under the radar and built a cool company with some great people. But yeah, so it's
no
out
promises,
there now.
But we're gonna try to get this to 17 million. We'll hand out pieces of paper in the street if we have to. I do have a question for you. I'm sure you're gonna have a kind of interesting, nuanced point of view on this. What's up with the VPN market? Because when I think of sort of like shady, when I think of like shady companies that do heavy YouTube influencer marketing, I think of VPNs, right? So it's like, we probably should have a video with 17 million views of like, these VPN companies that are run by, sort of unknown, shadowy internet, companies. But I'm curious if you have any type of read on that market.
I actually don't know that market that well. I do have a sense for why it's so prevalent on YouTube, though. The reason for it is, one, it's pretty high recurring revenue, high LTV product. So like you can afford to do marketing spend for a product like that. The second piece is the YouTube audience is like 2/3 international. And so it's an efficient way to reach a broad international audience who is in need of VPN to access content outside of their home country. And so I think that's why you see it on YouTube as a channel in particular, because the economics work is basically it. And once somebody figured that out, then everybody else copies the marketing channels. So
I've always said Mr. Beast should launch a VPN because he has a super, super broad audience. It goes everywhere. And if he was able to capture all of that, gross margin, net margin for himself, he'd be printing money, but maybe misaligned with the brand. Who knows? Just a crazy idea I had.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, it would work from the business part of it would work, probably work better than Beast Burger and some of the other stuff he's tried. But he definitely reached a scale where he can't do normal advertising. Yeah,
because if the product's not available globally, he's under monetizing his content at that point.
Yeah, it's that, and he's hit the scale of the ad buy now is like it's a Super Bowl every time he does anything. And so there's like 10 companies that can even possibly afford to do that. And so he's been driven to create new brands, and it's kind of fun to see what he's been able to do with that.
It's been super fun, and it's been fun having you.
Before you go, could you give us,
give us a coupon code.
No, I at least a minute on
What's
Pi.
Your favorite coupon code?
At least a minute on Pi and what you're working on now.
Yeah, so Pi is a new company I'm working on. We have an ad blocker that is designed to give consumers control over their advertising experience. We don't think the economics of the internet work if everybody has an ad blocker that blocks everything all the time. And we don't think it's reasonable that consumers should have to tolerate the ad load. And the incentives are misaligned there. So effectively, Pi is building a way for consumers to have granular control over what type of advertising they are comfortable with. And we are building ways for them to participate economically in that value exchange. So
that's very cool.
And you have 2 million users?
We have 2 million users.
And so let me guess, nobody's heard of you because you haven't hired PR firm.
Yeah.
You haven't raised venture capital. You don't have any VCs doing threads. Because I'm we always find it funny when we find a company with a massive user base that we haven't heard of.
Yeah.
And we've heard of you and Honey, but and candidly I hadn't heard of Pi until we were prepping for the show.
Yep, that's not surprising. Most of our acquisition has been through regular YouTube ads of all places.
Cool.
So it's interesting to be an ad blocker that's doing advertising.
Yeah.
We'll see how long we continue doing that, but to get to a reasonable scale where we have a large enough audience where people are interested in what we're doing, it was important. So we've invested in that growth. Personally invested in the company, and we'll see if we can make it work. But if not,
good luck.
It's a lot of fun building with a lot of cool people again.
That's amazing.
Love it.
Well, thanks so much for coming by. This
always
is a
welcome on the
fantastic
show.
Story. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers.